Well,
Yeah.
well, well. Hi, guys. How are you?
Look at your
Great. That
background.
is the most festive background I've ever seen.
Yeah, that was like from the Harajuku cartoon I did like years ago.
That's
Yes.
awesome.
Thank
Oops, sorry.
you.
I have to tell you, I we did a show together at the Tacoma Dome when Holla Batgirl was released, and you had the whole Harajuku crew with you.
Yep.
And it was the most festive, colorful thing I'd ever been a part of.
Thank you. It's so weird because putting a record out, putting new music out, and like people asking you about it, you start to really go down memory lane,
Yeah.
And somebody asked me, like, is it different this time? And it is. Like, every time is completely different because of where you're at as a person in your life. And during that time period was probably one of my most creative, like free, fiery, like I don't know. It was like everything that led up to the solo period was like,
Mhm.
I don't know. It was like this thing where I was like, I was so sure of everything I was doing. I was like, I know what it's gonna be. And it was it was a really fun, and you can see the background. It felt like how that looks. Like that's what it felt
Yeah.
like.
Yeah.
So
It's super
yeah,
great.
it's interesting.
Check out those nails. Let me see those nails. Look at that.
I
Oh
mean,
my gosh.
Pretty.
it's Gwen. Are you expecting
I
anything else?
just, I'm
I'm not.
Why
amazed. I
not?
don't do anything.
You know what's fun too is that I've seen you go 0 to 100 miles an hour in about 10 seconds because I remember that same show. I was coming down the hallway backstage at the Tacoma Dome and you were about to go on and it was you were doing 3 song sets with high school bands. I don't know if you remember this
I
that
don't
far
even
back.
remember. I mean, I do
But
remember doing a lot of that stuff.
I
But
just imagine Gwen literally was like in a hoodie. The hoodie was up and you were knelt down in the hallway, kind of like it was like Eminem in 8 Mile or Rocky. Like you were ready to go. You know what I mean?
oh,
And
you know what it was? Was that when I would come out into the audience? Or
I don't remember. I
I don't know.
remember it was like it was just like a little sprinkle of Gwen Stefani. You had
Oh,
just gone solo and it was like a 2 or 3 song set. It was like a little
oh.
teaser.
I
And you,
can't remember that exact moment, but I just feel so blessed. Like, I mean, all of these, that's life, right? Moments, a
yeah,
series of moments. And we're right now with having new music. It's interesting because I was saying about how like each album felt something like with Tragic Kingdom, it was like, okay, like, um, hey, let me try to do a backflip. Oh my gosh, I can do 10 in a row. Like, I didn't know I could do that. And that was me writing a song for the first time. Like, oh, I can't do anything. I can't even spell. I'm dyslexic and I have no, like, nothing. I'm like a nobody.
yeah,
And I wrote all this music, and it was just like, and wrote it not knowing that anyone would ever listen to it. Do you know what I'm saying? So
sure.
Yeah.
that that's like a completely different thing than like fast forwarding to like, okay, here we are, 2024 me. Like I had just, tried to write for like the last 4 years. And at the beginning of the journey, it was kind of like, I want to write a reggae, like ska record. I want something like happy, like COVID was happening. I just wanted it to be, and it felt very nostalgic and everything was kind of coming back in style. And I realized that you just can't compete with yourself. Like you can't like chase the past. You can't repeat yourself. And so that's kind of like this album felt like a fight to get to what is my truth right now and how can I create a bouquet of music that is like my identity of where I've become, like the present moment, right?
Sure.
And that is so pure that doesn't try to compete with myself or the world that's happening right now. Like it just needs to come from a pure place. And so it just feels so good to kind of have that real now and to be
Yeah.
able to share it feels like such a like I'm giving a present because it's like I've been living with it and I did it and it feels so good to get there and it feels like pure, you know what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
it's just it feels like I feel light. Like I feel like like, and I wouldn't have felt that way if I wouldn't have had to fight to get to this point. You know what I mean? But it's just been a weird journey. Life is weird.
That's such a great feeling to have, especially after COVID, because we were all in such a weird place. With the single Somebody Else's, would you say you're going into somewhat of a new genre with that sound?
I think that it was more about kind of this record feels like it's kind of like the past the present and then like the hope of the future in a way, because lyrically it talks a lot about the love that I've found, like finding true love and what that feels like, which is like I never felt that before. So
Mhm.
it, there's like when you listen, the album is an album too. It's not, it's a series of songs, but it creates an album. Like I really edited it down to the 10 songs for they all have a purpose. You know what I'm saying? And like
Mhm.
somebody else's was a song that I didn't want to include because I felt like it was a little bit like off topic and the past, but then I realized that it kind of needed that glimpse of how hard the past was and how far and big the love grew, right? Out of
Right.
that tragedy. And so without seeing that darkness, you can't really see how like floral it got. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And so it's interesting it's the first single because I was not expecting that. But what happens with that is that it just the songs just rise. Like everyone just it's just there, like everyone's like obviously that's the first thing. I'm like I know, isn't that weird? So like it just is interesting, like the process. And just art is so wild, like it's so something you can't really like see it just happens,
It's interesting to me that you mentioned wanting to kind of meld your different styles into this album because I think you really nailed it with somebody else's. Like I was listening to the song, not speaking on the lyrics, speaking on kind of the vibe of it. It
Yeah.
starts out, I'm not gonna lie, it starts out slightly country, and I literally my first thought was, oh, here we go. And then you get a little bit into it, and then I hear Gwen Stefani just starting out solo, like we were talking about. And then about halfway through the song, I hear myself going, sorry, I'm not home right now. I'm walking in the snow. Like you hit them all, right?
Wow, that's so cool that you heard that. I think that like the way that the sonically how the record came together was, well, first of all, it was like trying I really was like what do I don't want to listen to like ska music right now. Like I did that,
Right.
right? Like that was me finding my identity when I was a teenager, right? So like I guess that's why when I wrote the songs, the first half of this record didn't come out. Like it was like, oh, because that's not really me right now. But like all the music that I really listen to, and I don't know if that's the same for you, but like I kind of at this age am going back to like my childhood, like I'm listening to like Steely Dan and like, like all of the stuff that I was in the back of the station wagon on the way to church, and my mom would turn around and be like, how do you know all the words? And I'm like, oh, and it was just kind of the soft rock of the time, right?
Sure.
And think they call it yacht rock now,
Yacht
but
rock.
like, yeah. And it's like just a certain feeling of like, it's storytelling like country music, but it's not, this record is nothing to do with, I mean, it has no country. There's not, the only thing that's country on this record is that a lot of it's about Blake Shelton. So
I'm sorry, who is this Blake Shelton that you speak of?
he's just, I don't know, he's just nobody country guy, um, but yeah, like I feel like I have gone country because I married Blake, but I'm not, the rap music's not. And I
Right.
think that the other thing that, I wanted to do after I wrote the music, which was very indulgent and very like, it was very crazy. And I didn't think it was going to happen, was I wanted to work with a producer called Scott Hendricks, who is a country producer. Um, and if you know anything about creating music, I mean, what makes something country? Like, I don't know, like, I guess the twang in somebody's voice or like the instrumentation, but this record has really none of that instrumentation on it. But I did cut the record with Scott Hendricks, who in Oklahoma, not in Oklahoma, in Nashville with these amazing musicians. And the reason I did that was because I wanted to work with Scott, because Scott is literally a genius. And I knew him through Blake. And I mean, I've worked with so many different producers like in
Sure.
my lifetime. And the way we used to cut records is the way that Scott cuts records. And that's how No Doubt cut their records, which is like individual players having their own identity, their own talent, and coming together and playing live. And that's how this whole album was cut in 2 days.
Right.
And
Wow.
yeah, so Scott wasn't even available to work with me because he had contracts, and 4 days after he retired, he went in the studio with me and did this record, which is completely crazy because the idea of him doing my record, like an Orange County girl with this Nashville, it doesn't make any sense. Like it just doesn't. But when I sent him some of the songs, he texted me back, which was like, I literally like freaked out that Scott wrote me. And then he was like, I can't stop listening to these songs. And I was like, this is the weirdest thing ever, but I guess we're doing it. And I think that's what made the record kind of land, because I knew that I had the music and the songs, but some of the original ways that I cut them felt very 2000s. And I just didn't, I knew I couldn't repeat myself. Like I knew that that would be the wrong idea. So coming and just making it feel organic and real and pure, that's what it needed. And so that's probably what you're hearing, like, because
I
live
think it all
music.
worked really well. I think
Thank you.
in my mind, as a listener, as a longtime fan, it just was, here's a little piece of me from here. Here's a little piece of me from here. It didn't feel rehashed. I think if that's what you're worried about, not at all. I
Yes,
didn't catch that at
I
all.
love that.
Um,
Thank you.
I need to know other songs on Bouquet that you love. Like I know they're all your babies, but like, what are the other must listens, right?
I think that there's a song that like, because they did send the record out to, I've been talking to a lot of DJs. It's been really fun. And a couple girls came up to me like the last couple days and they were like, I was crying and they were like, can you guess what song? And I was like, there's a song called Pretty. And that song is like I feel like when you like find love, like real love, like for the first time, it's weird because you I look at you look at yourself visually like your whole life and you think, like, I can remember in like junior high school, like being in the gym and like nobody was in there and I was looking in the mirror and I was like, am I pretty? Like, I don't know. Like, you don't know when you're a kid what pretty is or what you think it is. And I think you really find out what pretty is when someone loves you. You know what I'm saying? And like that's when you feel really pretty. Like you and I wanted to write a song about that. So I think that's going to hit home for a lot of people that have found somebody that loves them. And there's another song called Bouquet, which is a title track, and I think that song is a really lyrically such a great explanation of somebody that might have had a dream that was absolutely blown up into pieces and having to like figure out, how do I make a bouquet with this new life? Like, how do I make a new family, a new dream, and put it all together and tie it in a bow, and that's kind of what that song kind of echoes to. And I think it's very relatable for people because everybody has to suffer. Everybody goes through horrible things in the world because the world's broken. But like, there's always like something amazing and beautiful that can come out of that. And that's why there's so many references to flowers and seeds and, sowing seeds in the earth and on this album, because it's such a metaphor for our lives and how, like even with the album, like I planted this seed of hope for myself that I could make music again, even though I'm super far into the future of my life. But once you plant the seed, it's like, that's hope. That's the hope we all need every single day. So
And growing, you're growing.
yes. And so I think that this record just kind of plays on that a lot. So I think people are going to love it. I think it's just such a honest album. And I don't mean, I'm not like in a braggy way. Like I always feel like I know this, that the songs are always have been in my entire career been handed to me by God. Like I take responsibility. Like it's the ones that are the really good songs. I'm just as amazed. I'm like, what? Like, and I'm always like praying, please give me another one. And I press the button and most of the times it doesn't work, but
Are you in LA right now?
I'm in LA right now, actually going to homecoming at my kids' school after this. And
Aw,
a couple of my kids are going to be performing. So I'm excited to see that.
that's great. Do you find that you have a little more anonymity when you're in Oklahoma?
Um, what do
Because
you,
last time we talked to you, you talked about going to the Walmart, and we're like, I just can't picture that.
I, I think that the reason why it feels a lot freer in Oklahoma is because there's no people where we live. There's literally no, like our town is so small. We don't really go in the town very often. If we do have to get food, we do go to Walmart. Blake does not go. So anyone out there in Oklahoma, he's not going to show up. But you might see me though. Um, but yeah, it's just I think what I love about Oklahoma is Blake, first of all. Second of all, I think that being in nature like that, like in just a vast like place that's just has seasons and like it's so wild and it just makes you feel like so calm, you know, and I never want to leave when I get there, like every time. And if we didn't have school down the street here in LA, I'd probably be there the whole time. But yeah, he's there right now. So,
So it's International Day of the Girl. I'll close with this question.
okay.
And as someone who I think it could be argued that you were the voice and maybe a role model for an entire generation. I know that's heavy,
What?
but I'm going to say it.
What?
What advice or what would you say to, let's say, 12-year-old Gwen who's trying to make it right now, knowing what you know now? We always say that if I knew then what I know now.
No, there's so many things I would say to that poor little girl. We just talked about her in the gym, like,
Mhm.
you
Right.
know, I guess I would say that like the one thing that makes, well, first of all, I would say that faith is probably the most important thing that my mom planted that seed in me when I was a little girl. And I've had to lean on that so much. And, finding it helps me to find my purpose. And like, I think that is very, very important. And I would tell her like, don't, don't get lost. We all get lost, but try not to get lost. And then I would also say, like, just be you. Just keep being you because that's where you're going to win. And I try to tell people that on The Voice all the time because the one thing I can say when you look back, it's like I didn't try to be, I was just being myself. Like I was so unbelievably naive and so sheltered and so innocent when The Tragic Kingdom came out that I was just being so pure that that's what won, right? I think. And it's like, that's the thing that people want is because we're all so unique, there's nobody like each one of us. So I think that's what I would say. Just keep trying to be saturated in your own self.
I love it.
That's
Best
great.
of yourself. We all have bad sides too.
So the new album Bouquet is out November 15th. You can hear the new song Somebody Else's right now, streaming
Wow.
a lot of different places, including the iHeartRadio app. Gwen, always great. I love
Thank
these
you.
twice yearly check-ins. They're
I
fantastic.
love it too. Thank you guys so much for playing the record. Thank you
Got
to
it.
everyone that's listening. I love you guys. You're my inspiration, and just enjoy it.
Same.
Merry
Have,
Christmas.
have fun tonight. Good luck to the kids.
Bye guys.
Oh, yeah!